I can't describe it. Like, oh my god, it's like, it's so good. It's like, oh my god, it's like orgasm.
I love Pop-Tarts, 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 I love Pop-Tarts.
Pop-Tarts, I want Pop-Tarts, Pop-Tarts. Pop-Tarts, Pop-Tarts. Ooh, baby fat. Pop-Tarts, Pop-Tarts, Pop-Tarts. Where's those summer Pop-Tarts? Pop-Tarts! 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 Pop-Tarts!
Well, I am assuming that lots of you are using social media, and so I'd like you to imagine two scenarios. The first one, you are on Facebook and you have posted a message and you get no responses back. No likes, no comments, no nothing. So you conclude that essentially you shouldn't be posting on that topic that you have just posted on, especially if you want to maintain your standing amongst your friends. Only come to find out later on that none of your friends actually saw the message. And that is because there's an algorithm running in Facebook, an algorithm that picks messages to put into news feeds, that ranks messages. And so your message never got ranked high enough to pop up in anybody's news feed. Take another scenario. So you have registered for an online community using a fake identity. You do not want to be identified. So in this anonymous state, you are finding yourself much more gregarious than you usually are, or much more strident in your tone than you typically like to perceive yourself as being. Or in fact, you're much more familiar and you're engaged in possibly even reckless self-disclosures in this kind of community. Both of these scenarios speak to the question that I'm particularly interested in studying, and that is, what is social media and what is technology in particular doing to who we are? None of your friends actually saw the message. You are on Facebook and you have posted a message. None of your friends actually saw the message. What is social media and what is technology in particular doing to who we are, to who we believe we can be, to how we present ourselves to others, and also how others perceive ourselves. So if we think about this, it's basically a question of the relationship between technology and users. And if we look historically, we have relied on tools and technologies to become who we are. So from being cavemen, right, we relied on all sorts of technologies to be where we are today, using our social media, using our cell phones. And so this is what we call a co-constitutive kind of relationship, which means that we construct the technology, but the technology... What is social media and what is technology in particular doing to who we are? We construct the technology, but the technology also constructs us. We become what the technology allows us to become. And so let's take an example. So recently, Apple made available ethnic emojis. Discourses essentially create a certain kind of reality with certain identities and possibilities for action. And it's essentially these discourses, again, are embedded in our technology. They are logics that is deeply rooted in the kinds of activities we can do with our technology. So let's look at these three discourses in Second Life. So one of the key things...
Facebook and you have posted a message and you get no responses back. None of your friends actually saw the message. In this anonymous state, you are finding yourself much more gregarious than you usually are, or much more strident in your tone than you typically like to perceive yourself as being. Or in fact, you're much more familiar. And one of the key findings from the research is that there are sort of three dominant discourses that are embedded or materialized in this technology. So you might say, well, what on earth is a discourse? Well, a discourse is a system of thought. So I kind of think of it as shorthand for it would be a logic, the way we think about the world and thereby construct the world. So let's take an example. There's a flood, right? We can see the waters rising. And this phenomenon basically only gets brought into being, gets made meaningful through the way we talk about it. The value of the platform is co-produced by its participants. People are constructing identities along these consumer and producer lines. And so if you're a producer, if you're then your objective is to be a good producer, you want to make money, you think of yourself as a product, as a brand, you need to differentiate yourself, right? So your identity becomes one of striving for this coveted position of being top of the heap, right? Making the most money, being recognized in certain areas. If you're a consumer, you're also that engagement with social media and our cell phones releases a chemical called dopamine. That's why when you get a text, it feels good, right? So, we've all had it where you're feeling a little bit down or feeling a bit lonely, and so you send out 10 texts to 10 friends, hi, 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 because it feels good when you get a response, right? Right? It's why we count the likes, it's why we go back 10 times to see if my Instagram is growing slower, did I do something wrong? Do they not like me anymore, right? The trauma for young kids to be unfriended, right? Because we know when you get a hit of dopamine, which feels good. It's why we like it, it's why we keep going back to it. Dopamine is the exact same chemical that makes us feel good when we smoke, when we drink, and when we gamble. In other words, it's highly, highly addictive, right? We have age restrictions on smoking, gambling, and alcohol, and we have no age restrictions on social media and cell phones. Dopamine is the exact same chemical that makes us feel good when we smoke, when we drink, and when we gamble. In other words, it's highly, highly addictive. We know that engagement with social media and our cell phones releases a chemical called dopamine. And that's why when you get a text, it releases a chemical called dopamine. We've all had it when you're feeling a little bit down, feeling a bit lonely, and so you send out 10 texts to 10 friends, hi, 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 hi. Because it feels good when you get a response, right? Right? It's why we count the likes, it's why we go back 10 times to see if my Instagram is going slower, I would very well it's why we count the likes, it's why we count the likes, it's why we go back 10 times to see if my Instagram is going slower, did I do something wrong? Do they not like me anymore, right? The trauma for young kids to be unfriended, right? Because we know when you get a hit of dopamine, which feels good. It's why we like it, it's why we keep going back. You have an entire generation that has access to an addictive, numbing chemical called dopamine through social media and cell phones as they're going through the high stress. When significant stress starts to show up in their lives, they're not turning to a person, they're turning to a device, they're turning to social media, they're turning to things which offer temporary relief. We know, the science is clear, we know that people who spend more time on Facebook suffer higher rates of depression. People who spend less time on Facebook spend more time on Facebook suffer higher rates. These things balance. Alcohol is not bad, too much alcohol. These things, gambling is fun, too much gambling is dangerous, right? There's nothing wrong with social media and cell phones. It's the imbalance, right? If you're sitting at dinner with your friends and you're texting somebody who's not there, that's a problem. What's happening is because we're allowing unfettered access to these dopamine-producing devices, when significant stress starts to show up in their lives, they're not turning to a person. Dopamine is the exact same chemical that makes us feel good when we smoke, when we drink, and when we gamble. The science is clear. We know that people who spend more time on Facebook suffer higher rates of depression than people who spend less time on Facebook, right? These things balanced. Alcohol is not bad. Too much alcohol is bad. Gambling is fun. Too much gambling is dangerous, right? There's nothing wrong with social media and cell phones. It's the imbalance. If you're sitting in a meeting with people you're supposed to be listening to and speaking, and you put your phone on the table, face up or face down, I don't care, that sends a subconscious message to the room that you're just not that important. That sends a subconscious message to the room. That's what happens. And the fact that you cannot put it away is because you are. That's what happens. And if you wake up and you check your phone before you say good morning to your girlfriend, boyfriend, or spouse, you have an addiction. And like all addiction, in time it'll destroy relationships. And like all addiction,
if I give everything, I'll lose everything. Everything is about me. I am the most important thing. And you really haven't thought all those cyclical thoughts for a while. And as it keeps going, I could never be involved. I could never really see in real time. I could never really be involved. And as it keeps on going, I could avoid real time. I could ignore my busy mind. I could avoid contact with eyes. I could avoid going inside. I could avoid wasting my life. I could avoid 2020 inside. I could avoid standing in line. I could avoid the 405. I could avoid coming to life. I could say anything I like. I could switch off whenever I like. I can sleep whenever I like. I can leave in the middle of the night. Oh, but I miss it. Don't miss it. Don't miss it.
the most popular accounts on Instagram have zero content.
True.
They are teenager, usually girls, who eat bananas. I mean, zero content. And they have 16 million followers. Let me try to explain it in common terms. If your last post had 2,000 likes and your next post has 1,000 likes, you failed. So you are constantly competing against yourself. If your last post had 2,000 likes and your next post has 1,000 likes, you failed. Social media was created by a very well-defined profile. It was all social media were invented by men. There was not a single woman involved. All social media were invented by schizoids, people who, recluses, people, hermits, people who were socially inept. All social media were invented by nerds. Most of these men, later on, when we read biographies and so on, we realized that they were asexual or with very low sexual activity. So the profile of the men who invented social media, and we're talking about all these men, is very, very, very narrowly defined. They created social media in their own image, of course. Since they were asexual, asocial, schizoid, white men, they created social media in their own image, of course. Since they were asexual, asocial, schizoid white men, they created a tool which was geared towards asexual, asocial, schizoid white men. And then what happened to this tool, to their utter surprise, for example, you can read Zuckerberg's articles and so on, to their utter shock, it took off and it started to cater to black men and black women and very sexual people and asexual people and social people. It started to cater to population groups which were totally out of sync with the nature and character of the technology. And I think we are witnessing this conflict. The technology is designed for a highly specific psychological profile, and yet it is being used, abused, and misused by other psychological profiles, and this creates dissonance. The technology is dissonance. We don't know whether unhappy people gravitate to Instagram or whether Instagram made them unhappy. 63% of all Instagram users are unhappy. Now, we don't know whether unhappy people gravitate to Instagram or whether Instagram made them unhappy. But since we have similar statistics for other social media, it would stand to reason that it's the platform that made them unhappy, not the other way. We know that anxiety and depression among the young between 15 and 24 increased by 70% overall. We know that anxiety and depression among the young between 15 and 24 increased by 70% over the last 30 years. It's double, simply double. And we know that since 2010, teen suicide climbed by 31%. So teen suicide is rampant. And today, it is the first time in human history that the leading cause of death among teens, up to the leading cause of death, is suicide. Social media are constructed around envy, pathological envy. They are purveyors of pathological envy and amplifiers of pathological envy. Social media are constructed around envy, pathological envy. They are purveyors of pathological envy and amplifiers of pathological envy. And they quantify via various ranking algorithms. They quantify envy with likes, with retweets. So they quantify envy, and then they leverage envy to motivate you. In other words, they use envy to cause you to adopt some course of action. So they weaponize envy. Now look how weird they weaponize envy. Now look how weird they weaponize envy.
But not only envy, but I think even more so aggression. Of course, pathological envy is a form of aggression. People confuse jealousy with envy, and here's the difference. Jealousy is when I look at you and I say, I want to be Richard Grant. These platforms encourage repeat use, repeat compulsive use. These platforms encourage repeat use.
Repeat compulsive use. And now we know from psychology that only these kind of emotions, aggression, envy, hatred, only these kind of emotions encourage repeated use. So There is no way that they have designed these platforms without being aware that they must leverage these emotions to create addiction. I believe social media is the most asocial invention of ever. It encouraged more asocial behavior than anything, before or after, in my view. Social media created an unprecedented wave of withdrawal and atomization. That's a reaction to negativity and so on. And on the other hand, those who have aggressive tendencies and so on, those find social media an ideal turf. So they gravitate towards social media and of course enhance the toxicity. It's a self-perpetuating feedback loop, a filter, a negative feedback, which amplifies and attracts and connects.
Turn on a light so it burns in the night. Return down the flight. The world is uncertain, I'm certain by the curtains tonight. You will not know but grow, we will not dare. We'll always smile and care and ply with your hair. Got to reverse the pattern, what's the worst that could happen? For the first time in my adulthood, the worst that could happen is utterly unthinkable, sinking unsaid dread. And suddenly I'm worried about the bread under the bed. But then all sorts of awful shit seem plausible indoors. Proportions get warped into the worst and for certain. You're growing thumbs, I'm going numb. Tucked into your mum looks like it might be quite fun. A blip on a screen, you don't know me. I think about you and what you'll grow to be. A blip on a screen, you don't know me. I think about you and what you'll grow to be. Black and white blotches to watch and not get. And then flashes of sense along with your body and head. It is all as simple as you think when you were little. It is all as simple as me sinking a little drink. You're growing nails, mine are so nailed. I'm drinking your mother's wine for both of us today. You don't know choice, but you know my voice. You should have never have chosen me, I've loved like a boy. The world's so dark sometimes, the noise of the cars. Building a world full up with toys and stars. A blip on a screen, you don't know me. I think about you and what you'll grow to be. A blip on a screen, you don't know me. I think about you and what you'll grow to be. You'll dance on every song, footfall, every little move. Before you realise that every noise is not music. My dad raced these thoughts, he paced these boards. I never knew I just grew, that's all you can do. But then growing to an adult is just learning the language of explaining with words what you were as a baby. You'll leisurely learn how to lie and pretend, to service your love and rely on your friends. This could be fraught, but it's all I got taught. And I don't want to make it up as I go along with yours. A blip on a screen, you don't know me. I think
me,
about
it's Mark,
you and
it's
what you'll grow to be.
Kevin Systerman, Instagram, it's all of these people understood this consciously, and we did it anyway.
That culture is missing here. So part of what we're trying to do to achieve those goals is like take really big, audacious points of view on the world and then train ourselves to be patient. And it's really, really hard. The entire society is set up to not be patient anymore. Consumer internet businesses are about exploiting psychology. And that is one where you want to fail fast because people are unpredictable, and so we want to psychologically figure out how to manipulate you as fast as possible and then give you back that dopamine hit. We did that brilliantly at Facebook. Instagram has done it, WhatsApp has done it, Snapchat has done it, Twitter has done it. So there are great examples. WeChat is doing it. There are great examples of failing fast is the right path to exploiting psychology of mass populations of people. I think we all knew in the back of our minds, even though we feigned this whole line of like there probably aren't any really bad unintended consequences, I think in the back, deep recesses of our minds, we kind of knew something bad could happen. But I think the way we defined it was not like this. I think the tools that have been created today are starting to erode the social fabric of how society works. And what I meant by that is the following thing. Today we live in a world now where it is easy to confuse truth and popularity. And you can use money to amplify whatever you believe and get people to believe that what is popular is now truthful and what is not popular may not be truthful. You know, Joe and I, for example, we've been on the other side of climate for a long time, right? And the reality is now I can take money and I can use that through all of these social media systems that exist to hundreds of millions of people, and I can convince all of Joe's friends and everybody like him of my opinion in very subtle and small ways. And he can do the same to me. We can do that about vaccines. We can do that about gay rights. We can do that about bathroom laws. We can do that about Roy Moore. And so I think the question we have to ask ourselves is, how do we live in a world where this is now possible? And
so it was about the, but just so I understand, was it, because I read and watched parts of what you were talking about. Part of it seemed to me about the ability to pay to manipulate people's thoughts. Also, the ability to pay to manipulate people's thoughts. The other seemed to me to be this sort of ADD society with which this sort of liking and everything else has created this sort of feedback loop that you compared to drugs.
We know for a fact that what all of these systems do, every single one, is it exploits our own natural tendencies in human beings to get and want natural tendencies in human beings. And that feedback, chemically speaking, is the release of dopamine in your brain. And so these feedback loops do, and they exist everywhere. We know for a fact that what all of these systems do, every single one, is it exploits our own natural tendencies in human beings to get and want feedback. And that feedback, chemically speaking, is the release of dopamine in your brain. And so what these feedback loops do, and they exist everywhere, in Call of Duty, in other video games, in social networking sites, they get you to react.
When Facebook was getting going, I had these people who would come up to me and they would say, you know, I'm not on social media. And I would say, okay, you know, you will be. And then they would say, no, I value my real life interactions. I value the moment. I value presence, and I value intimacy. And I would say, well, you're a conscientious objector. That's okay. You don't have to participate, but you know, we'll get you eventually. and like, I don't know if I really understood the consequences of what I was saying, because the unintended consequences of a network when it grows to 1 billion or 2 billion people. And it literally changes your relationship with society, with each other, with you know, it probably interferes with productivity in weird ways. God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. You know, if the thought process that went into building these applications, Facebook being the first of them, to really understand it. That thought process was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. Need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And that's going to get you to contribute more content, and that's going to get you, more likes and comments. And it's a social validation feedback loop that it's like it's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology.
It literally is a point now where I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. That is truly where we are. And I would encourage all of you, as the future leaders of the world, to really internalize how important this is. If you feed the beast, that beast will destroy you. If you push back on it, we have a chance to control it and rein it in. And it is a point in time where people need to hard break from some of these tools and the things that you rely on. The short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops that we have created are destroying how society works. No civil discourse, no cooperation, misinformation, mistruth. And it's not an American problem. This is not about Russian ads. This is a global problem. So we are in a really bad state of affairs right now, in my opinion. It is eroding the core foundations of how people behave by and between each other. And I don't have a good solution. My solution is I just don't use these tools anymore. I haven't for years. It's created huge tension with my friends, huge tensions in my social circles. If you look at my Facebook feed, I've posted maybe 2 times in 7 years. 3 times, 5 times. It's less than 10. And it's weird. I guess I kind of just innately didn't want to get programmed. And so I just tuned it out. But I didn't confront it. And now to see what's happening, it really bums me out. Think about, there were these examples where there was a hoax in WhatsApp where in some village in India, people were afraid that their kids were going to get kidnapped, etc. And then there were these lynchings that happened as a result, where people were vigilante running around. They think they found the person, and seriously? The short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops that we have created are destroying how society works. It's a really, really bad state of affairs. And we compound the problem. So you're training your brain here, whether you think it or not, whether you know it or not, whether you acknowledge it or not. Acknowledge that these things where you're spending hours a day are rewiring your psychology and physiology in a way that now you have to use to go and figure out how to be productive in the commercial world.
So if you don't change this, you are going to get the same behaviors over here. Change this. There's a reason why Steve Jobs was anti-social media. I'm telling you, I'm not on these fucking apps. I'm not him by any stretch of the imagination. But I am proactively trying to rewire
Computers. Computers. On the chat room, on the AOL, on the Netscape, the Explorer. Yeah. They probably call him Steve Jobs because he got him. He could give a job to anybody, man, no problem. Computers downtown and computers up in Harlem. They running out of computers because everybody bought them. Caught him up in the web of the world and it's wide. With YouTubes, there's more science than Bill Nye, the science guy. I'm wild and wide because the internet filled with spies from the NSA, that's crazy. The internet filled with government wise guys that's maybe trying to give you the disease, the rabies. Yeah, we self-curate social media. What happened to when you had to kick it with Tina to know if she was feeling ya? Free yourself from my control, he's just freeing ya. If you're feeling me, I'm feeding y'all the real knowledge of the mind, body, and the soul. Control. Computers. What's What's up with computers? Computers. Yo, computers. I love them. I need them. I kick it with them a lot. They were my friends from the start. Before I could rap well. Shout out to that well. He like computers too. He like computers more than me, probably. Computers. Computers. Jam.
Guys, look how many likes I got out of this method. 1,000 likes, super easy. Hello and what's up guys, I like here in this video. So first of all, I want to thank you so much guys for your support and every single thing you do for this channel. Second, if you guys have any questions, please let me know down below in the comments. I'm gonna be replying to every single person. So in today's video guys, we're gonna be talking about how to get Instagram likes absolutely for free. You don't need to pay literally anything. Super easy and simple. All what you gotta do is just follow my steps and every single thing will be alright. So this video guys will be super fast. It's not even gonna take a long time. So I just made this Instagram account. It has 0 followers and 0 following. So that way you can like see the process. So all what you gotta do is just post literally anything. For example, this photo of mine. Okay. Hit next, and then what you're gonna put in the caption is whatever you want, and then these hashtags. Guys, look how many likes I got out of this method. Guys, look how many likes I got out of this method. Guys, look how many likes I got out of this method. 1,000 likes. 1,000 likes. Super easy. Hello, what's up guys, I like here in this video. So first of all, I want to thank you so much guys for your support and every single thing you do for this channel. Second, if you guys have any questions, please let me know down below in the comments. I'm gonna be replying to every single person. So in today's video guys, we're gonna be talking about how to get Instagram likes absolutely for free. You don't need to pay literally anything. Super easy and simple. All what you gotta do is just follow my steps and every single thing will be alright. So this video guys will be super fast. It's not even gonna take a long time. So I just made this Instagram account. It has 0 followers and 0 following. So that way you can like see the process.
So all what you're gonna do is just post literally anything. For example, this photo of mine. Okay. Hit next, and then what you're gonna put in the caption is whatever you want, and then these hashtags, whatever you want, and then these hashtags, and then paste it. Hit OK, post it, and then share. So this is the first step. The second step, guys, is go to any celebrity photos.
I need to speak louder because every time I watch my freaking videos, people only see like, I don't know, like 2 views. I need more! I need to speak freaking louder, cause I sound like a 5-year-old trying to say its first freaking words. Like, what the frick was that? Like, I always go to my freaking videos and I always go like, why do I freaking sound like a little girl? If I sound like a freaking little girl, I'm not little, I'm freaking 10. I'm in 4th grade. And I also found a cat, and I got $20.
To survive, I need light to feel alive. So like me, please like me and stay beside me. I say like me, now like me and stay beside me. But see my pics and play my movie. You can see they kind of groovy as they turn up on your screen. Just hit the thumbs up and you'll see. I need lights to survive. I need lights to feel alive. So like me, please like me and stay beside me. I said like me, not like me and stay beside me. I like you back, so don't you worry. Lights are free, you won't be sorry. And make this world a better place with your virtual embrace. I need lights to survive. I need lights to feel alive. I said like me, not like me, stay beside me. I said like me, not like me, stay beside me. Needing clicks like daily bread, selling ads like mad. The social network CEO, in the end, is getting older though.
Is there a principal reason why I should delete my social media? And if so, what is it?
There are 2. One of them is for your own good, and the other is for society's good. For your own good, it's because you're being subtly manipulated by algorithms that are watching everything you do constantly, and then sending you changes in your media feed and your diet that are calculated to adjust you slightly to the liking of some unseen advertiser. And so if you get off that, you can have a chance to experience a clearer view of yourself and your life. But then the reason for society might be even more important. Society has been gradually darkened by this scheme in which everyone is under surveillance all the time, and everyone is under this mild version of behavior modification all the time. It's made people jittery and cranky. It's made teens especially depressed, which can be quite severe. But it's made our politics kind of unreal and strange, where we're not sure if elections are real anymore. We're not sure how much the Russians affected Brexit. We do know that it was a crankier affair than it might have been otherwise.
You say it's bad for me as an individual. Is it bad for me because I'm addicted? Have I become chemically hooked?
You have. The founders of the great Silicon Valley spying empires like Facebook have publicly declared that they intentionally included addictive schemes in their designs. Now, we have to say, this is what I would call almost a stealthy addiction. It's a statistical addiction. What it says is, we will get the broad population to use the services a lot. We'll get them hooked through a scheme of the people who run the tech companies like Google and Facebook are not doing the manipulating, they're doing the addicting. But the manipulating, which rides on the back of the addicting, is the paying customer. The people who run the tech companies like Google and Facebook are not doing the manipulating, they're doing the addicting. But the manipulating, which rides on the back of the addicting, is the paying customer of such a company. So, and many of those customers are not at all bad influences. They might simply be trying to promote their cars or their perfumes or whatever. When the company's own scientists are publishing on this topic and come to the same agreement, I think it's time to say this is real. I don't think we're being evil so much as we're being stupid.
When it comes to Facebook, has Facebook made itself safe yet? In terms of data harvesting and scraping and all that?
Well, Facebook's fundamental design is one that is, the business model is to addict you and then offer a channel to you to third parties to take advantage of that to change you in some way without you realizing it's happening. I mean, bad actors are able to use Facebook in ways that Facebook can't understand. Facebook's fundamental design is one that is, the business model is to addict you. When the company's own scientists are publishing on this topic and come to the same agreement, I think it's time to say this is real. All the data Google can get on you, much of which comes from just your email or whatever else it might be, is fed into an engine that compares you with other people who share some similar traits. And YouTube's ordering of videos that are presented to you is designed to, on the one hand, maximize your engagement so you won't stop watching, but that's achieved not just by observing you, but by a multitude of people who are similar to you. And then when you do get an ad, it's contextualized. The whole point is that it's sneaky. It's a mechanical approach to manipulating people, and because it's so algorithmic, it doesn't involve direct communication, and people don't get the cues to understand what's happening with them.
Why do you think social media has had the effect on politics that it has? You know, is it because of the way people respond to things on social media?
Well, in traditional behaviorism, you would give an animal or a person a little treat like candy or maybe an electric shock, and you'd go back and forth between positive and negative feedback. And when researchers try to determine whether positivity or negativity is more powerful, they're roughly at parity. They're both important.
But the difference with social media is that the algorithms that are following you respond very quickly. They're looking for the quick responses. And the negative responses, like getting startled or scared or irritated or angry, tend to rise faster than the positive responses, like building trust or feeling good. Those things rise more slowly. So the algorithms naturally catch the negativity and amplify it and introduce negative people to each other and all of this. And so what this does is it means that the algorithms discover there's more engagement possible, say by combining ISIS
It's coming to pass. My country's coming apart. The whole thing's becoming such a bumbling farce. Was that a pivotal historical moment we just went stumbling past? Well, here we are, dancing in the rumbling dark, so come a little closer. Give me something to grasp. Give me your beautiful, crumbling heart. Another disaster, catharsis, another half-discarded mirage, another mask slips. I face off with the physical. My head's ringing from the love of the stars. There is too much pretense here, and too much depends on the fragile wages and extortionate rents here. We're working every dread day that is given us, feeling like the person people meet really isn't us, like we're gonna buckle underneath the trouble, like any minute now the struggle's gonna finish us. And then we smile at all our friends. It's hard. We got our heads down and our hackles up, our backs against the wall. I can feel you aching. None of this was written in stone. There is nothing we're forbidden to know. And I can feel things changing. Even when I'm weak and I'm breaking, I stand weeping at the train station, 'cause I can see your faces. There is so much peace to be found in people's faces. I saw it roaring. I felt it clawing at my clothes like a grieving friend. It said there are no new beginnings until everybody sees that the old ways need to end. But it's hard to accept that we're all one and the same flesh, given the rampant divisions between oppressor and oppressed. But we are, though. More empathy, less greed, more respect. All I've got to say has already been said. I mean, you heard it from yourself when you were lying in your bed and couldn't sleep, thinking, couldn't we be doing this differently? I'm listening to every little whisper in the distance singing hymns, and I can feel things changing, but it's so hard. We got our heads down and our hackles up, our backs against the wall. I can feel your heart racing. None of this was written in stone. The current's fast, but the river moves slow, and I can feel things changing. Even when I'm weak and I'm breaking, I stand weeping at the train station, 'cause I can see your faces. There is so much peace to be found in people's faces. It's not enough to imagine we'll be happy when we've got enough stuff. All this stuff is blocking us. I'm neat with no chaser. I'm all spirit, but I'm sinking. Because these days are not days but strange symptoms. And this age is our age, but our age is rage sinking to beige. And yes, our children are brave, but their mission is vague. Now, I don't have the answers, but there are still things to say. I stare out at my city on another difficult day and I scream inwardly, when will this change? I'm beginning to fade, but my sanity's saved, 'cause I can see your faces. My sanity's saved, 'cause I can see your faces. It's hard. We got our heads down and our hackles up, our backs against the wall. I can feel your heart racing. None of this was written in stone. The current's fast, but the river moves slow, and I can feel things changing. Even when I'm weak and I'm breaking, I stand weeping at the train station, 'cause I can see your faces. I love people's faces.